Welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney. It's good to be with you. Only 5 states in the United States have a highway use tax. One of those states, Connecticut, made that law the law of the land January 2023. We're going to unpack all of that here with my special guest. Please welcome John Blair, president of the Motor Transport Association of Connecticut. John, welcome to the hot seat.
Spencer, I'm so happy that you had me on. I'm grateful to have this opportunity.
Well, we're gonna heat things up a little bit, John, in just a moment. But before we do that, please take just 30 seconds or so. Tell us about the work that you're doing at the association.
Yeah, so Spencer, I took over in October 1 of 2022, so it's relatively new in the seat here. From day one, my job here is to advocate on behalf of about 500 members we have, whether that's legislatively advocating for them or, working with them to help their businesses run better by offering educational seminars and others.
All right, well, let's jump right in there. So first thing, let's talk about pressure. Now, this is a 100-year-old association. Do you feel a little pressure coming into such established association like this in terms of what the expectations are?
Absolutely. I mean, it's been daunting in one aspect, but I also am very well supported by the American Trucking Association, who's our national federation. I'm also fully supported by a lot of the presidents in other states. So it's although it's a large task to represent that many members and to help them get through times that we're going through here in the United States. But it's great to have the support of other colleagues.
I love that. So what have you learned so far in your brief 5 months being a part of this group? What have you learned about the members within your association that you serve?
My members are, a lot of blue collar types that are hardworking individuals. They're real people. I love working with them. I like going out to visit them and seeing what they're doing, at their businesses. Like everybody else, they're working on very tight margins. They're trying to make a go of it. And their job is to bring us all the goods that we get in our home and into our neighborhoods comes from these guys.
Love that and agree. Best people on earth. That's why we do what we do. Let's not mess around here. Let's jump right into this highway use tax. Tell us why this became law first, and let's talk about some of the issues that we're having in terms of compliance and then just addressing it all. So let's just kind of start on the origins of the law itself.
Yeah, so thank you. I thank you for that. The biggest issue here in the state of Connecticut for the trucking industry is a new highway use tax. It was passed in June of 2021. Governor Lamont, who's our current governor, in 2017, when he was first running for governor, had brought up a truck-only toll that he wanted to implement once he came into office. Ultimately, that did not happen. He tried to go for full tolls. That didn't happen. So in June of 2021, when nobody was looking, we're in the middle of the pandemic, they slipped through a law which required the big rigs, the triaxles, to have to pay tax, and that tax is a weight-based tax, and it came into effect January of 2023 here. So it's been a hot topic of discussion, and I think Republicans here in the state of Connecticut are looking to have a public hearing on it to try and repeal it.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. What are the issues that this is creating for the trucking industry? What's problematic about it?
Well, the biggest problem obviously is the cost, right? So if you have 25 trucks, I've talked to a group here that if they have 25 trucks, they're going to pay about $150,000 to $200,000 more. We believe those monies should be kept by our carriers and reinvested in their employees who like all industries were having trouble retaining and bringing in new employees. So I think those monies we would push to be reinvested within the businesses. The other thing that's a problem is the compliance, as you mentioned earlier. Trying to comply with this law has been junky at best. We have monthly filing of the actual tax itself, and you can imagine for a smaller big carrier filing monthly, tracking how many miles you've traveled, tracking what the rate of tax would be, is all new to these businesses. So it's not just the cost of the tax, obviously, it's the administrative burden that's very costly for these folks too.
Similar, well, not completely similar, but when they did the ELD mandates, there was both the same thing. There was the cost of the compliance, but there was actually just the administrative components of some of that compliance as well. And as a result of that, a lot of the folks just said, this is my stepping off point. I just don't have a desire to do this anymore. I'm curious, what have you, from your vantage point of this, from the association, what have you viewed as far as how folks view a career in trucking or business owners in trucking? How has this affected the way that they look at the future?
Well, I think like any other industry, adding cost to any industry right now is difficult at best. We also are facing a recession, as we've talked about. So, if we want to keep our truckers and carriers in the state of Connecticut, we can't continue to tax them and increase fees on them, increase fines on them. Ultimately, it's going to be too much, and they aren't going to be able to make a go of it. Connecticut is one of the most costly states to live in the country. So add that onto the fact that you're adding a new tax, and business is just tough as usual.
So, you come into this job and they say, congratulations, John, we have a wonderful project for you. Let's go work hand in hand with lobbyists and let's go get this thing repealed. So, is this a zero-sum type scenario? Either it's repealed or not, or what are the potential outcomes that could enhance, the present state for your members?
Yeah, so thank you. What we are going to do is we're going to ask for a repeal. We don't expect that to happen because Democratic leadership here in the state of Connecticut were the ones that passed it. As you know, and as everybody else knows, once a tax is in place, it's very difficult to undo that tax. We do believe that we will have success in the courts. So in Rhode Island, they sued the American Trucking Association on behalf of the state of Rhode Island, and the truckers in the state of Rhode Island sued and won a suit there to have them take down the tolls. There's a lot of underpinnings in that particular case and fact pattern that has the same unfair advantages and disadvantages. So we believe that although the tax will be in place for a couple of years, that we ultimately will be successful in suing the state and repealing the tax that way.
Well, we opened with there's 5 other states that also have this law. What is the environment in those other states? You cited Rhode Island. What are the other states, and what's currently going on with this highway use tax in those markets?
All right, there's Oregon, Kentucky, New Mexico, New York, and unfortunately ourselves are now in that bucket of having a highway use tax. Every state's highway use tax has been very junky to implement. Ours happens to be worse than most, which is embarrassing because we should have followed the states that came before us and learned a little something from that. I'll give you an example. In the state of New York, they've had a program there for quite some time for a highway use tax. They have a sticker on their truck. From out-of-staters, they have an evasion rate of 50% of the truckers that are going through New York that aren't even paying the highway use tax there. We expect that in Connecticut to be upwards of 70 to 75% of out-of-state truckers that won't be paying the tax, especially at the get-go. There's little enforcement mechanisms in the law, so we think we will follow just as the other states have had. You're really going to tax the in-staters, and the out-of-staters will pretty much get the pass if they so choose, and that's a problem.
Yeah, obviously the state doesn't get the revenue that they want, and then you have all of the suppression of the performance and the financial capabilities of the operators within the state. So it's just nobody wins, right? So So understand why you would be repealing that. So let's talk about goals of the association itself. Obviously, this is number one. You're getting your sea legs within the association. What are some of the things that you're excited about as you step into this role that you're going to bring to the members of this group?
Yeah. So as I said, there's the lobbying and advocacy side of it. I think we've talked enough about that. So I have to do that for the members, make sure we're present and testifying on all the bills that affect us. But separate from that, running the association, there's membership opportunities there. One of the ones we're trying to seize on is educational seminars. There's a lot of different educational seminars that you can afford folks. We have a hazmat class coming up. It's our first one since I've been here. We have 45 employees that will be coming from our member companies for that class. And I'm excited about developing and building out that particular part of our business here. The other thing is putting on events like we have a truck driving championship in June that will be coming. I love it. It's new to me. I've never done it before, but this is about the truckers. This is their opportunity to shine, and we want to do our best here to put them in a position to be able to shine. And I'm really looking forward to doing an event that is all about the truckers. So there's things like that, and then there's just improving the facility that we work within, and making it a better home for us and my employees here. so we can provide a maximum service to our members and meet them where they need us to meet them. I'm meeting with every vendor we have in order to improve what we offer. So I'm excited about the opportunities that we have here in Connecticut.
I'm curious, how did it come about? I read that you were, attorney by profession in your past. How did this marriage between John Blair and Motor Transport Association of Connecticut come about?
Over the years, I grew up in the legislative environment. I started there when I was 25 years old and a little above 50 at this point. So it's been over 25 years of engaging at the legislature. So my advocacy background here in Connecticut didn't involve a lot of transportation issues. I did energy, workers' comp, biz law, liability, a lot of health care. I knew the outgoing president, a great guy, Joe Scully, when the opportunity, he was leaving to go take a position where his dad was president up in New Hampshire. And Joe reached out to me and helped me get the job and said, I think you'd be great at this. I live literally 3 blocks from my office. So I'm Hartford born and bred. I think it's a great opportunity for me. Like, I'm ecstatic about carrying this forward.
Well, I love that. So, obviously a huge part of our network, of course, in our world of merger and acquisitions, a lot of people that dial in for our audience, they're suppliers within the trucking and logistics space. That they're the insurance, they're the attorneys, they're the manufacturers, they're all the folks. So what would be something in terms of an ask as you're just kind of getting into the situation that said, hey, this is something that's really important to us that we want to know that we're working towards? Like, what would be the ask of our network as you look towards this upcoming year, as things that are going on in 2023? What would you ask the broader network of our show, like, hey, here's some ways on how you can help us get where we want to go?
Yeah, I think keeping up the rhetoric on certain topics. Highway 2 use tax is one thing, but there's a big parking issue, as you know, in the country that we're having. I think there's for every one parking space, we had 11 trucks. So like parking issues are a big thing. CDL licensing, making sure that people are being trained up to get CDL licensing and want to do it, and then stay in the job. Because the biggest problem we have is they'll get the CDL license, they'll drive for a couple of days, and they're like, this is not for me. So I think identifying early on. So I work with a lot of groups on those types of things, of workforce development activities. I think making sure that we talk about inflated verdicts, making sure that if, in Connecticut, for instance, we have a seatbelt gag order, which is not admissible to put into play whether someone's wearing a seatbelt or not. We're asking that law get passed to make sure that we prove that, look, if you're doing something unlawful, it should probably be admissible in court in the first place. So there are major issues like that. I think also making sure that states are putting funding towards infrastructure projects that help to make the roads safer for our cars and for our trucks. So those are some of the issues I guess I would touch on nationally.
I love that. So, I think that you've probably already discovered this. One of the great things about being in our industry is just the people and the willingness to collaborate and to help and do all the things. And so very excited about you meeting the challenges that are before you in this new role. So we'll wrap it up with one wild card question there, John. So I'm curious, I know you have a legal background. I'm curious, you look over the past 30 years, if you were to star on any law television show as yourself, what would be that TV show of all of the legal television that there's out there? LA Law, whatever the iterations of Law and Order, all the things. What would you choose out of those?
I would the Special Victims Crime Unit. I always thought that's a very emotional one to watch. So I think that would be the one that would be the population I'd want to protect too. It's certainly, I was not a criminal lawyer, but at one point wished I had been, because I do enjoy that area of law.
Well, I love that. Well, we thank you so much for just taking the time with us here in the hot seat. Thank you for your service to our industry and to the association. That's going to do it for us here. We will see you next time.